And good afternoon, world. It's about 1 p.m. in the afternoon on Sunday, the 12th of April 2020. It's been 100 days, 102 days since the first death of the virus. And the virus has now spread worldwide. There's about 8 countries left in the world without any sign of the virus. More and more people are saying to me this virus, the effects of this virus is going to change absolutely everything. It's going to change the way we live with each other. It's going to change the way we gather together in groups. It's certainly going to change the way we travel and the economy of the world. Now, the people I deal with, the majority of people who have astrological readings are those who are more inclined towards personal self-development, and by an extension of that, those people are also generally more inclined towards the well-being of the world. Not necessarily in any particular theme, but environmentalism is a common thing amongst people who study astrology. This is not exclusive. Many of my clients, not the majority, but a significant minority, are much more corporate or money orientated, who have no interest in spirituality or the environment. So astrology does cross all boundaries, but the majority of people who are interested in astrology are very much using it for personal growth and self-development. As a result, these people, the majority of people who study astrology or who I deal with, seem to be interested in the way the planet's going to change in the future as a result of this virus. Now, over the course of my life, I'm 64, I'll be 65 shortly. I've studied a lot of different futurists, if you like. And because I'm into my cyberpunk, I've developed quite a sort of niche area of attention towards certain writers or authors. All of them seem to have a view of a future which is broadly similar. I'm really into a chap called Ray Kurzweil, who's a futurist, and he's developed big time the idea of the singularity, a point in the future where all strands, all timelines come together in some type of particular event. I'm also a big fan of Terence McKenna, who's unfortunately died about 20 years ago, but during his lifetime he was constantly talking about the omega point of transcendence and about how human history is so radically different to any other system of biological organization that preceded it on this planet. But he figured that humanity must be reacting to some type of magnet or a choice point that lies ahead in the temporal dimensions. And he called this the omega point of transcendence. I'm also a really big fan, not only of Terry Pratchett, because he keeps me sane, but also of William Gibson. William Gibson, I've got every single book he's ever written in hardback. I made sure of it. He brought his first book out in 1984. He's called the Godfather of Cyberpunk. His first book in 1984 was called Neuromancer, and in that book he used the words matrix and cyberspace, and he is credited with being the first person to use the word cyberspace in contemporary fiction. In many ways he's the kind of fictionist godfather of the internet, and he's always ahead of his curve. 10-15 years ago he was writing about nanotech. In his latest book, which he finished writing in July of last year, that's when he actually put the postscript in of it, and it published in December of the very start of January this year. He comments on how Johns Hopkins University is a major role player in the technological developments of the future age, and he also talks about how As humanity reached that point where everything changed, a number of pandemics started sweeping the world. And for him to talk about pandemics and Johns Hopkins University in a book that's published 4 months before this pandemic hits, and the Johns Hopkins University has the most up-to-date ability to forecast what's going to happen with the quarantine and the viruses, I find it stunning. Stunning. The thing about all of these authors is that they all refer to some point ahead of us in the temporal dimension, in the future. And what Kurzweil calls a singularity, what William Gibson calls the jackpot, what Terence McKenna calls the omega point of transcendence. It all seems to be some point in the near future where all the different timelines, all the different strands of consciousness seem to focalize into one particular area. And this is where astrology comes in really helpful. Many times over the last few decades, I've heard the phrase the age of Aquarius. And it's always been some random hippy-dippy moment in the future where everything's going to be wonderful, man. But with the grand conjunctions of recent years, particularly this year, and it's easy to see how the astrological phenomena of this year is represented in the real world by the virus. It's very clear. So that does point then to me looking forward and thinking, well, hang on a minute, it's only a couple of years now, it's only 3 years till Pluto moves into Aquarius. In 4 years' time, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, in 4 and 5 years' time, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the last degree of the zodiac at 29 Pisces, and then its first conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries at the very start of the zodiac, immediately followed by Uranus moving into Gemini. All of this is happening in 3 to 5 years from now. And it seems like we're heading into the sort of, not an end game, but a major compression of concentrated change, which we will either act towards or we will react. Coming back to what I said at the start of this video, so many people are saying to me, we can't go back to being the way we were. The skies are clear, that we can hear the birds and the bees, the wildflowers are growing. Are we going to go back to, in a few months' time, the madness of non-stop smog and driving and aeroplanes every 5 minutes? Are we going to go back to the ways of greed and profit and shafting each other? Now, I'm not suggesting we go down the socialist/communist road where everyone is equal. The human nature is that to improve oneself. But I am suggesting that in the last 20 years, we've got out of balance with ourselves, with humanity's purpose, with humanity's aims and goals in its drives, and the nature of greed and profit above all else, at the expense of, not only at the expense of compassion and empathy, but at the expense of our humanity. If we go back to that, then we are going to get a lot more pandemics. And society, as we've understood it so far, will fail. And a majority of people will die. The vast majority of people will die. Thing is, it's all very well people saying to us, to each other, to me, to everyone, oh, we've got to make the changes, we've got to change, we can't go back to being the way we were. But you can be sure that once this virus is gone, the corporates are going to start pumping oil again, the airplanes are going to start polluting the skies again, the traffic's going to be obscene, and more viruses will come back. Unless the people we purport to call our leaders, make some type of shift in consciousness. I note that the arch-capitalist Boris Johnson is now avidly complimenting the NHS, who saved his life. Be interesting to see if he has a shift of emphasis when he eventually returns to his position of authority. But folks, the world needs to change, and it really starts in here. It really starts in here and up here. And if we go back to being the way we were, we're screwed. We're screwed. Part of me is glad that I am the age I am. But, you know, I've got a 21-year-old granddaughter. All my friends have got young kids and young grandkids. We need to have a good planet for them to grow into and evolve. Meantime, I shall keep reading my cyberpunk. I shall keep looking at futuristic potentials and trying to dream in a positive future for all of us. I am so glad that astrology found me. Sermon over. Catch you later, world. Bye.